what's the record prediction you can expect if you're Notre Dame for your Fighting Irish in 2025? We'll talk about that right now. Irish fans, make sure you're subscribed. Y'all been good to us. Appreciate y'all being dialed in. Fun year ahead for you out there in South Bend. The offense is going to be really curious here in 2025 because you lose your all-everything quarterback in Riley Leonard. When we were at Media Days for the national title game, the SID said he's your favorite player's favorite player, and that's who he was. Like, he was all-everything for them. They love that dude. Rallied behind him, heart and soul of that football team. But now with him moving on to the NFL, and I expect it to be the CJ Carr era, I think that you're going to have a much more multiple style of offense. We said this during the college football playoff run last year. Notre Dame was in and out, specialized in burgers and fries, specialized in running the football, get to third and Riley, let him do his thing, get it to Jeremiah Love. We got the secret menu baked in there. Those of y'all that have gone in and out, you know you can get a Neapolitan shake, which is tremendous, a little extra patty on your burger, animal fries, all that stuff. But like, you had the pass game, kind of the vertical stuff baked in the back pocket. That wasn't really your go-to, though. Your go-to, again, was the run game, the burgers and fries. But this year, for all my folks in the Southeast, your cookout. You got a lot of things on the menu. You went out and got Will Pauling from Wisconsin, Malachi Fields from Virginia. I've told y'all about him and them ad nauseum. Jeremiah Love, another year in the system. You can use him in every which way. You got a quarterback who should keyword, able to activate all that. I don't really question what CJ Carr is throwing the football downfield so much as I question how long does it take to reach cruising altitude as the guy at Notre Dame. Now, again, I think he wins the job, which is the massive disclaimer here. I think he wins the job, assuming he is. How often are you getting the consistent product from him every single week? Like, do I get one CJ Carr against Miami and a different guy against A&M and a different guy when you play USC? Or is it like, no, relative to one standard deviation, you're getting the same CJ Carr every single week? Because if I get the same CJ Carr, if I'm Mike Denbrock, I can then game plan for that, which means that I can then attack you in whatever way I want to that given week, and I'm able to go in with a plan and keep that plan throughout the course of a game. I think it took Notre Dame a while to find out who they were offensively with Riley Leonard. Like, I think we saw a different offensive approach from them in November than we did in September, very, very clearly. So can CJ Carr unlock it all and be consistent enough to unlock it all is my main point there. Now, defensively, I think the preseason vibe is pretty trustworthy. You know what I'm saying? I think that when you look at the feeling around Notre Dame, they're not really worried about the defense, even with them losing Xavier Watson, Kaiser. Like, I think they feel pretty good, and I think that's about how it's going to be as long as Marcus Freeman's your head coach there. Yeah, new DC, Chris Ash, sure, but like the way they've recruited, I don't think anybody's nervous about the defensive side. And with that being the case, I'm not nervous either. Now, the question I have, though, is how do your new leaders step up? Because I mentioned Watts and Kaiser. Those are dudes that you look to when things go a little bit off the rails. When you lost to NIU, I promise you every single person on that side of the football is looking at Kaiser, looking at Watts, and saying, okay, what do we do now? How do we respond? How do they practice? What are they saying? What are they not saying? They're the temp setters. And so your new temp setters, who are they and what do they bring to the table? I think Leonard Moore is a young buck still, but I think you still have to, with all the preseason accolades he's getting now, step into more of a leadership role. Drake Bowen, linebacker for them, I think he's got to step into a leadership role. So the maturity of this football team on that side of the ball with the leaders they lose, I think that's going to determine their ceiling. Because I don't really question the talent all that much. I really don't. So I'm excited to watch what they are on that side of the ball. But again, right now, not that nervous with it being a Marcus Freeman coached football team. So let's go game by game here as we do on this segment and give you our prediction for what's going to happen for the Irish. First game at Miami. It's a big one. Everyone's talking about Notre Dame breaking in a new quarterback, and that's fair. Miami's breaking in a new quarterback in Carson Beck, who didn't get spring practice. Now, it's at home for Miami, but, I mean, is that home field advantage like that advantageous for Miami? Is it any more difficult to play at Miami than it was College Station a year ago? I'm going to pick Notre Dame, as of right now, to win that game at Miami and for the CJ Carr era offensively to get off to a good start. I don't know if it's great, but I think it's good enough, and I think that defense does a lot to give them some extra edge in that football game over Carson Beck. So then you got a bye week. How do you handle that? It's crucial. How do you handle that if you're CJ Carr and you hear your name about, can Notre Dame get back to the national title game? I'm telling you, week 1 is such an overreactionary part of the college football calendar year, post week 1 especially. Let it bake a little bit. How you handle that will be huge during the bye week. But then you play A&M at home, a game you won a year ago. I've said it many times, I like A&M a lot this year. I like the continuity at quarterback. I like their continuity when it comes to what Elko's building there at the coordinator spots. I think you actually lose that game to A&M. So at that point, you're 1-1. Say, whoa, hey, what's going on here? Again, maturity for this football team, how they steady themselves after a loss will be the determining factor as to what they do in 2025. And you kind of have a tricky stretch after Purdue. I think you beat Purdue, not to overlook the Boilermakers, but you win that game. But then you have games at Arkansas. You play Boise State, who was a playoff team last year, and NC State, and then you play USC. I think all of those are wins up until USC. So I think the game at Arkansas is a big win. I think the win over Boise State's great. Win over NC State. I think by the time you play USC, I worry about how much that grinds you down. Not saying that NC State's a juggernaut in themselves or the game at Arkansas is a juggernaut, but I just think those games back to back to back to back kind of wears on a team, especially with a first-year starting quarterback. I just think at some point in time, there's going to be a trip-up spot for them with a new quarterback, whether it's Carr or Menchie. So I think you lose to USC, get your second loss, get a bye week, then you kind of catch your stride. For my money, at least, I think that they're going to look in the mirror after that loss and say, "All right, we're done with this. We've already lost 2 games. We're in playoff mode if we weren't already before." And I think you start reeling them off. So I think you get a win at Boston College. Navy's tricky, but I just think with how talented Notre Dame is on the defensive side, they'll take care of the option attack. At Pitt is also a bit tricky, so if you don't think the USC game's a loss, I think the Pitt game could be the one you circle if you're looking for a loss on the potential schedule for Notre Dame. I do think you beat Pitt. Playing Syracuse with your former quarterback and Steve Angeli will be cinematic for my money. You beat Syracuse, then you get a win at Stanford. So I have Notre Dame finishing at 10-2. Again, my big take here is I think there's going to be some spot here where you have a game with a first-year quarterback that maybe you shouldn't lose based on talent, but just based on inexperience, you drop a game that you're not necessarily supposed to or not underdog in. Now, here's what I will say. I think that them going 10-2 still makes them a college football playoff team. Because that 10-2 with those losses and depending on what the rest of the landscape looks like, I don't think Notre Dame gets left out. I also think it would be a little bit ridiculous to just excuse what last year was. Like Notre Dame got in the college football playoff with a loss to NIU, no conference title game because that's what Notre Dame's deal is, and made a run. Made the committee look pretty smart for putting them in the playoff, right? I think it's that same kind of vibe with this team, and I also think that last year maybe provides some goodwill. I know it's supposed to be one year to the next, different seasons, I get that, but I think that 10-2 with this schedule and how rigorous it actually is, this is not your dad's Notre Dame schedule. There's a lot of good teams on this gauntlet for you. I think they still make the playoff with 10-2. So Notre Dame got them at 10-2, and I think they will make the playoff with that record if it shakes out that way.